Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining today's webinar, which is Revolutionizing Media Workflows. My name is Bob Herzon. I'm the president of ScaleLogic. I'm here to moderate today's event. I've got Daryl Hines, our CTO, and John Lackas with Black Spot Media. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
John, you're on mute.
Indeed. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. All right, so we're going to get started today. Really glad everybody could join us. It's been a huge success of people interested to find out about the latest and greatest in technology for creating better workflows. It's one thing for Daryl and I as ScaleLogic to tell people how great we believe this product line is, and then it's another to actually have someone who's been using it for the last year. So we really appreciate you joining, John, and sharing your experience.
Sure.
I'd like to start out with just kind of giving the audience here a very quick high-level overview. CaraOne is an on-premise AI search engine that has actually been in development for 8 years. A good friend of mine by the name of Eddie came up with this idea and started to build what he felt as an editor and a producer was a tool that would revolutionize the way people found their content and allowed them to be more creative versus more administrative. And so after 8 years or 7 years of development, Eddie had come to me and asked me to help him bring this product to market, which we very quickly agreed. CaraOne is a 1U appliance or 2U appliance. I'm sorry. It's a 2U appliance that would go on premise. And that's a key point. It goes on premise. It does not need the internet. It does not need to learn from outside sources. CaraOne's already been taught to understand things just like the human mind would understand things. It's its own neural network. So it understands the world just like you and I would. When CaraOne goes into a facility, it's pointed to the content or multiple types of content, and CaraOne will watch that content. She'll watch it anywhere from about 4 to 15 times real time on a single appliance. It'll allow anywhere between 10 and 20 users to use the appliance as a search engine. And then you can scale CaraOne linearly by adding a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth server. What this allows you to do is increase performance, increase user count, dedicate watchers versus searchers. CaraOne has over 9 LLMs built into it, and it's been optimized in order to get performance. So we've seen other AI tools out there in the market that are hooked into web services that can either be extremely slow, very individual in what the AI is actually doing, or can also be extremely expensive because of the web services that it's using. So by CaraOne being on-prem, it's taking away all the security risks that our industry would be concerned about. It's a CapEx model for our clients, so they don't have to worry about unrecognized revenue or billings that might be coming in. They know exactly what they've got. And from the time that they start using CaraOne, they're getting instant access into their content versus having to have people watch the content and log and tag their media. And that's really where CaraOne begins. It's understanding your content, not only from face recognition to logo recognition, but contextually with feelings and emotions. And this is really a game changer for the industry and a time saver that John will explain in great detail. So without further ado, I want to have Daryl bring up his screen. We're going to do a very short demo just to give everyone an understanding of the simple user interface that we've got, some of the search criteria that we demonstrate, and then we're going to open it up to John to talk a little bit more about Black Spot and how he used the product over the last year.
All right. I've got Adobe Premiere here. I'm going to try to share my computer sound as well. There we go. I've got Adobe Premiere. I'm on a Windows box. The same identical experience is also offered on the Mac. So the Mac and the Windows have identical clients. So the workflow and the buttons is the same. So CaraOne does work on the workstations themselves. They obviously are going to be pointed to the high-res material, but CaraOne is also pointed to proxy so that it can work over a VPN or work over slower networks as well. So we're able to come in here and see that I'm part of a team. We have multiple team setups, and that I am pointed to the proxy location so that I can do my searching and work off of a lower throughput version of the files. We have 4 major features, and they are signified by the upper right here. I'm in the search quadrant, and in the searching, we see ability to filter. We've got a lot of different filters here. We can filter and look for just something in the visual part of the videos. We can go for the spoken word. We've got 170 languages that we can detect, and we can search in English based on those, or we can assign the server to a specific language as well. We've got a media pool. So this is my entire team's media pool. In this example, I can look at an Adobe Premiere project with this filter, and then I can further go down into my team's storage. Obviously, another team's storage is not going to show up here, but I can dive down into my team's storage to come and get something more specific. I've got document search. I can go for something in the text. And once again, Bob alluded, this is contextual. We're humans, we don't remember word for word, so we're able to just put the gist of what we're trying to find in this free-flowing search, and the CaraOne will offer up results based on that. Or I'm going for an image. Maybe I know there's an actual still photo or a diagram that's part of a PDF, a Word doc that I want to pull out. And I've got pictures and then audio only. So these are make up the filters that will let me search into something that specifically that I'm looking for. So I always like to start out visually, just something like sleeping dog. Sleeping dog will show that I've got a lot of images with the sleeping dog, but it also, this particular example into our 300 hours of random YouTube footage that we've got here also shows some of the power. We see that the AI is going to give the highest confidence result, much like a Google search. So that's up here. The AI is said, hey, with a certain amount percentage of certainty, I'm pretty certain I've got a sleeping dog here. And then as I scroll over, those percentages go down. But we like to point this one out. There's a blurry sleeping dog in this cooking show sleeping back here. And so you're seeing the power of what the image recognition, logo recognition can really do, because it's really looking at all of the frames of video and being able to pull out even abstract results. So sleeping dog versus running dog versus any type of action that you want your dog to do. But let's go for peaceful image, and you can see that possibly that same sleeping dog might come up in the peaceful images with our footage. Remember, this is not going to the internet at all. This is completely going into the media library that you have. So we've got very strong concepts of looking for different things. I mean, it knows different cinematic terms, drone footage. You're looking for something specific. So we can hone in on that. and close-ups, side pans, different cinematic terms that you might be able to put in there as well. So with the contextual search, with the object recognition, how the world works, faces are important. We've got a strong facial recognition. Of course, we can bring up Leonardo here. And now we can look for them being emotional or specific things that you want to pull up to build your story. Notice that the AI also is bringing in an in and out point. I've got a scrub utility. I've got the ability to change in and out points if I'm not completely happy with what the confidence rating has brought up. I've got the ability here to copy the entire folder path and file path to the clipboard. Maybe I need to hand that off to a team member. And I can export that to Premiere just straight out in a straight button. And then if we go to Premiere, we see that importing in here. And so we can use those clips within the Premiere interface. Let's do sound. Sound might be something like you don't remember exactly what was said, but you
Okay, this is unexpected, but
you're looking for the gist of the conversation.
good morning. I just woke up in London.
So I said I'm in London. She said I woke up in London. Of course, we don't remember the exact word for word, but we're able to put in the gist of the conversation and come up with example clips that might match that. Further to the integration with the Premiere, and we've got the spoken word, we can drill down. I'll show a little bit of how we can go into a subset of files. I could do a shift click here, or I could select an entire folder, but I'm just going to come into one file here. And now we've got a magic wand button. Oftentimes we're tasked with taking huge, long content, and we have to watch all of that, and we have to find the exciting spots and put in and out points and prepare that for the editor. So what this is basically keying in on the most cinematic shots if we're hooked on the visual. And so it's going through that, bringing in the in and out points that the AI deems as cinematic, really cutting down the job. And let's say if we wanted to do a long interview, we've got a lot of blank air, a lot of spots with nothing happening. So we can also do it with the spoken word. And now the AI is going to present up clips that have impactful statements. So this will really cut down cycling through that media and getting the best shots and getting the most impactful statements for your projects. So let's take that search a little further now, and I'm going to come back out to my full media pool here. And let's just work on a Bloomberg building in London story. We've got some nice architecture. Now I'm going to show you the star. So the star is ability to add up clips into some rough cut. Let's get an office scene here as well. And now I'm gonna move from the search. So I've shown how to do multiple searches, use the star to build up a list. Now I've clicked on the star. This is a list where we can change the, we can work with the clips. We've got a rough cut editor. We can change in and out points if we want to. Now here's the way to work with an Avid Media Composer or other system. We can export this as an AAF. So we can get that out onto our file system, import that into our Avid. So now we have a frame frame rate AAF with a rough sequence that we can import right into our project. Furthermore, from the AF export, we could save those for later. We could send that one to another team member. Or we could bring that into a predictive timeline editor. With the CaraOne predictive timeline editor, this is really taking storyboarding, bringing it into more dimensions, in that we could actually fork our timeline. So now we've got a rough cut editor, but we're able to use the prediction to help us predict what might come next. So here we're building our story about some nice architecture in the Bloomberg building, but then maybe we want to come in and see what the AI is offering up, to now come in, and it's offering shots of the employees, some office workers. And so it'll help us kind of storyboard this out in using what could come next, maybe a wide shot, maybe a narrow shot. If I come back here and maybe I really like this staircase, I can click here, and now you can see that it's going to start to fork my timeline. Now I can be building different ideas. I would be working with CaraOne prediction tool to help build out multiple storylines. And then obviously, if I'm really happy with one of those storylines, I've got the export AAF, and now I can export that version out into my editor. So that's the prediction tool. It's really meant for helping and bringing timelines into a more visual sense. And then the final is a chatbot into the media. It's called Ask CaraOne. Here you can ask your media questions. We've got a fashion show downloaded here. What are the spring shoe trends? And now this is going to go into our media pool, into our filtered search, and give in and out points and start to answer that question into our media. This is not going out to the internet to find the answer. It can't even do that. And so this is Ask CaraOne. That basically you can start to ask your media questions. Maybe you had a character in episode 9 that did something, but you couldn't quite remember what they were doing. In a new sense, maybe we ask it, how did Abe Shinzo die, or something, some political figure or something in a news instance where you have to go back and ask the media question. Maybe you're working on daily social media buzzes and you want to come up with good ideas for building your social media. So that's Ask CaraOne. And I've just briefly went over the 4 features and want to hand this back over to Bob so that we can continue the conversation around CaraOne.
Thank you, Daryl. Looks like you may have done this demo once or twice before.
Just a few times.
So CaraOne, very powerful search engine, but as you can see with the features being developed around the search, it's becoming this intelligent media assistant. It's there to help the content creators do more content creation versus, like I said, the administrative work where they're constantly searching or watching content and logging it and tagging it. So at this point, I want to bring in John. And John, why don't you give us a quick introduction of Black Spot Media, what you guys have been doing?
Sure. So Black Spot Media is a family of companies, and we do all sorts of different stuff. We make everything from trailers and promos to unscripted shows, documentaries, long form. So we sort of run the gamut, and we also do increasingly amounts of social media. Largely what we do these days, thanks to tools like CaraOne, is we are working with vast libraries of media in order to try to bring them to market. When we were looking for workflow improvements, we were searching for tools that would help us solve the problems that we have, which is basically we need to create more content than ever before. We have less time to do it, and budgets are shrinking every day. So how do you do that? How do you make more stuff? How do you make more better stuff? We saw CaraOne at NAB New York last year, bought it, The price point was sufficient that we're like, well, let's just try it, because if it doesn't, if it doesn't work, that's great. But unlike most products that you'll see in this space, because we've looked at almost all of them, CaraOne actually works. And it's more than just a search engine. It's more than just an intelligent assistant. It is an incredible opportunity, because what it does is it opens markets, because it lets you do stuff that you wouldn't do otherwise. Like we're dealing with, we had one network send us, they were doing a rebrand. They sent us 60 years of footage, and the only prompt they gave us, the only creative direction they gave us was their new tagline. So now we've got 60 years of footage. I think it was 1,300 hours that they sent us. And who can sit through 1,300 hours and remember anything? You can't look at transcripts and pull anything out of 1,300 hours. It's impossible. So we were able to go through using CaraOne. We started with the prompt of what the new tagline was and asked it to start pulling stuff out with it, pulling stuff out of that footage. Over the course of a day with 2 people, I think we made 30 or 40 spots, showed them to the network, and they based their campaign around that. But that's an insane amount of labor to get done in a day. Yes, it took a while for CaraOne to scan the footage, but it is significantly faster than reviewing it or in real time. But once it's in, the results are astounding.
Wow. So you've got 9 months now under your belt, I think, since we've installed it in there. Can you talk a little bit more on some of the use cases that you've had? That was a really good one, but I think you've had a couple other ones that just kind of blew you away.
Right. Well, I mean, the easiest one is to look at. So we do a recap show for a cable network, and so they shoot about 200 hours of behind the scenes footage, and then we mix that with the show, and we put it in. And we originally budgeted for the show before we'd acquired CaraOne, and I think we took a team of 6 or 7 people, and it would take 8 or 9 weeks in order to complete a show. And that would have involved people going through screening, logging, tagging, not only all the BTS stuff, but also the shows themselves and trying to integrate them. If you employ CaraOne in a situation like that, we're able to reduce that staff down to about 3 and cut the time in half that it would take to actually create those shows, which is not to say that we're supplanting people or replacing jobs. What that means is that we can actually make more shows. So at the same price point, we can go and offer more content than we would before at the same price point, which obviously endears us to the client. We had a prestige cable network come to us just 2 weeks ago, and they wanted us to make 4 episodic promos for a show, and they needed them in a week. And we sat down with a team of 3 people and CaraOne. In the space of 2 days, we made 6 episodic promos, 6 recaps, and I think we gave them about 25 pieces of social that they didn't ask for, and they took all of it. And so what that means for us is that's a new market, because that network couldn't afford to make recaps and social for that show. All of a sudden, now they can do that again. We're making more money because we've opened up that possibility for them, and it was a new revenue stream for us. For social stuff, at one point we had a comedian who had 1,000 hours of footage, and she was not getting any social traction with it. She really couldn't figure out why she was not building an audience online. So we scraped TikTok data, YouTube data, used that to form our prompts into CaraOne. It looked at all of the footage that she had done over the last 30 years. We started making social stuff. We're making tons of it, putting it out there, and her audience increased by 1,200% in a week. So that's 1,200%. So again, that's not something that we would normally do. We would look at a project like that and just pass on it, because I don't know how you would staff that and reasonably make a profit. So having CaraOne is sort of like having a team of the best assistant editors with whom you've ever worked. And what it really does is enables the creative people on your team to be more creative. So the people who are assistants now all of a sudden are freed from the drudgery of logging and tagging and screening, and they can function as senior creatives, because all of a sudden their time can be dedicated simply to creating more better stuff. So it's really a force multiplier for whatever size team that you have, whether you're one person or, we've had a team of up to 70. Deploying CaraOne just exponentially increases the amount of stuff that you can make. And when you see how much more you can make, it gives you a real competitive advantage as a content creator, because you have ideas that you simply wouldn't have before, because all of a sudden you've got breadth and the depth of all these libraries at your fingertips. And so you can just do stuff you wouldn't do before.
Awesome. That's great. So here's a question for you. You know, a lot of new tools come by your desk all the time, and learning curve can be a major issue or actually processes and things like that can be a major issue when you have a staff and a team to make sure that you're getting the best out of that tool. What would you say the learning curve was like for your team, teaching them how to use CaraOne and adding this new concept into their workflow?
Zero. If you can use ChatGPT, you can use CaraOne. It's that simple. And I think even in the demo, the demo doesn't really show how easy it actually is to use, because you're just writing prompts, and you can write as many prompts as you want. And everything that it delivers will spark another prompt. So it's sort of incredibly intuitive to use. It's actually, if you can use Google, you can use CaraOne. From a technical point of view, the servers were installed and started scanning footage immediately. We don't really have to do too much with that. We do have one person who is technically involved with it. Everybody else is just using it as if it's a web browser.
Excellent. Want to remind the audience here too, if you have any questions, you can go into the area and just type in your questions here, and we can get more answers from John and associated to his workflow. What would you say, you know, looking now towards the future with the product and other things that you might want to use the product to integrate it with? Do you have any ideas around that now that you've got 9 months under your belt?
Absolutely. So we are actually in the middle of we're pitching right now a major lifestyle brand who, again, the star of the brand has at least 40 years of footage that they've created, and they're looking to create it. They're looking to find new audiences. They're looking to repurpose that library in order to sustain the brand beyond the lifespan of the host, essentially. So they're looking to make this permanent. So they need tens of thousands of individual pieces of content that they need to create. Again, it's this kind of thing that you just would never bid on unless you had a tool like this. And so we're going to take that, we're going to divide those into, we're going to create new shows out of it. We're going to create small pieces of social. We're going to create 5-minute pieces of social. We're basically going to repurpose the whole thing by simply going through and prompting. So we'll get data from TikTok about what an individual audience is watching that particular day. Feed those prompts that we get from TikTok into CaraOne, have it generate the clips that are relevant to that, then we'll go and polish them and represent them. But basically, it means that every day we'll be churning, creating new stuff every single day off of this library, basically indefinitely. And that's sort of the promise of it. Sports is another thing that we've really had great inroads with being able to do this, because it knows who everybody, even though it's a closed LLM, it knows who everybody is. If you need to see, you know, a specific golfer with a 9-iron, it'll identify that and it'll pull that out for you. So we had a major sports broadcaster asking us if we could handle a petabyte of data, which again boggles my mind because nobody can deal with a petabyte of data. But if you have this kind of tool, then you can, because you can pull that individual stuff out of there. So that's been great. Oh, and one more thing about the LLM, which is really fascinating, is we were doing promos for a show about basketball, and there was an actor playing Magic Johnson, and we didn't watch any of the shows because we didn't have time. So we would prompt it to find Magic Johnson dunking. Not only would it find archival footage that was included in the show of the actual Magic Johnson dunking, it also knew who the actor was who was playing Magic Johnson and identified him as Magic Johnson. So it's remarkably sophisticated while still being MPAA secure.
Absolutely. So I think in our industry today, we've gone through a lot of changes over the last 5 years, a lot of stress into the marketplace, a lot of got to reduce costs, got to create more content, got to get more revenue streams in. If you were to try to put a number or talk about the ROI of putting CaraOne in there, did it pay for itself in a week, 3 months, still working on it? What's your opinion there on the cost savings that it's associated to your business?
I would say, well, first of all, I would say that our workflows are increased by a factor of about 8 to 12 to 1. So what we could do in 8 days, we can now do in 1, in the worst case. Given the general slowdown in the industry, I'm pretty sure that almost everybody on this call will have felt something of a slowdown over the last, at least the summer or the last year. We haven't pitched a single job that's not involved this automation process. We have not won a single job without pitching this. So everything that we've gotten since March, we have gotten by using CaraOne in some form or another in order to give us a competitive advantage. So the price, the price point is half the cost of hiring one assistant editor. And it multiplies the power of every single person on your creative team by a factor of, say, 8, 10, or 12. It's sort of incalculable. Like, you can't really say, how long did it take to pay for itself? It pays for itself instantly. It might take you, a couple of months to figure out what you want to do with it and how it can improve what you're currently doing. But, we use other tools where we pay by the hour and it lives in the cloud. And so we always have unexpected cloud costs. We have to limit the scope of the projects we do when we have, something that takes $100 an hour to analyze. We're just not going to dump a petabyte of data into that. CaraOne is virtually free. The power that it has compared to the price point, at least for us, was such that we can't really even calculate it.
It's perfect. The other thing that we hear in the industry is, people are nervous about AI. It's really got people scared for their jobs. Do you see CaraOne jeopardizing jobs at all, or actually increasing?
I mean, it depends on whether you want to stay in business or not. I mean, I guess you could use it and eliminate your staff to a certain point, but then you're not going to reap the advantages of it. We had internal resistance when we first started deploying CaraOne, and people really did think it was going to come for the jobs, and people resisted it. And I think that that's a valid fear, especially since AI has done a lot to decimate, writing and music. It's had a lot of deleterious effects, but this is not generative AI. This is a workflow tool. This is a workflow improvement tool. And as I mentioned earlier, we have not reduced staff because of this. What we're doing is just making a ton more stuff for a bunch of clients that we would not have otherwise had. So what we've used it to do is to empower the people who would have been stuck in those assistant jobs or those trainee jobs for another 3 or 4 years, and have them actually start creating stuff, because now we don't need them to do the owner's tasks of logging and tagging. And it's really been fantastic, because especially as we're moving into doing more social, which everybody has to do because those are where the largest audiences are, having younger people who are more fluent with the language of social really has just multiplied the power of everybody on the team. So it's not something that takes your job. It's something that makes your job radically better. We really do equate it around here to the introduction of the NLE in the 90s, because if we were cutting on tape or if we're cutting on film, like my first job as an assistant, I was one of 4 assistants for one editor. And like, all we would do is cut negative, or all we would do is log tapes. And none of us ever got to cut. This lets you skip all that and start to cut.
Okay. That's excellent. So we got about 12 minutes left. There's some questions pouring in here. It might be for Daryl, might be for you. So let's take a look here. I see a couple of them as they're coming in. Daryl, can CaraOne analyze camera raw footage like R3D?
Yes. So we have FFmpeg under the hood. So if it's a supported FFmpeg codec, we will pick it up and be able to analyze it. And if it's a codec that isn't supported, we're also partnered with professional transcoders that can pick up anything we need to. So if it's not handled by FFmpeg, we'll handle it on a case-by-case basis and put in the support required.
Excellent. I see one here talking about CaraOne. Can it scrape cloud storage? So can you analyze? Can you look at cloud storage, and how would that work?
Currently, right now, the server is on-prem, it is a Linux OS, so you do need to mount your cloud bucket as a Linux file system. So as long as we're able to do that, so we handle those as a case-by-case basis as well. But as long as the Linux server can see that as a file system and not as a S3 object at this time, then yes, we can look at those.
Excellent. I knew this one would be coming on, and I'm going to actually add to it and do two parts to this for you. So the question is, can we integrate into existing MAMs and DAMs? Can we utilize their APIs? Can we take advantage of their metadata? So that's part one, and then I'm going to ask another question after you answer that.
Yeah, for sure. So CaraOne has a modern API. It can be integrated both directions. So the MAM can hand off sub filters to CaraOne. CaraOne will do the contextual search and reply with the results, with those confidence scores and the number of clips that you want to have back as the results. So absolutely, that
Okay.
integration can happen.
And then maybe just a quick description of the construction kits and how these can be used, or what they are and how they can be used to help people QC.
Correct. Yeah, as you've seen from the demo and talking with John here today, you see that CaraOne's main charter, main use and value point is into the production team. There is a construction kit that we came out with that will further that into areas of QC. The construction kit enables things like, go give me every clip that has this certain logo in it. Go point out everywhere where there's a swear word. So those are just some examples of what could be done with the construction kit to bring it more into more of a QC and reporting area. But otherwise, you know, what you saw today is the ready to go without the construction kit. It's really tailored to the production team. But the construction kit will enable CaraOne for other types of areas in the workflow.
Excellent. Hey, John, you probably, through all the different projects that you put CaraOne through, you've probably run into places where CaraOne didn't know the talent. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in teaching it the faces?
Yeah, it's a very simple process. And I can't remember whether, and Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like you submit 3 to 5 stills of any person that you want to see, and CaraOne just learn. And it's just, you know, if you run into that issue, it's not really a big deal at all. You just take some stills from the footage, put it in, identify who that person is, and then it knows. I also did want to mention one thing that I do think is important, is the contextual analysis is something that we also find very helpful. Like I was working on a documentary about the Chesapeake Bay, and like we would get stuck. We shot so much that we would get stuck and not remember stuff. Like, and so I found that I was able to type stuff in like, why is nitrogen and phosphorus bad for the Chesapeake Bay? And all of a sudden, all the clips that I need to find the answers to that are there, even though they don't mention nitrogen or phosphorus. They would talk about pollution, or they would talk about the deleterious effect to a certain, you know, wildlife population, and it would just find that stuff. And it's pretty amazing what it does. So we haven't run into too many situations where we've had to train it, simply because the LLM is sufficiently robust.
Yeah, faces is obviously the main area where we see almost everybody needing to eventually train it, and so we did make a very easy way to have your staff, you know, be able to train at the faces. We've run into some areas that we've got the data scientists on staff, and we're able to work with clients and train it things that aren't on planet Earth. So that, like you mentioned, if you're dealing with Earth things, us humans, our interactions, animals, these things that are on our Earth, the LLMs are real, you know, will actually surprise you like you said, John, of how good they are. But then if we've got something that isn't on this earth, made up sci-fi, then these are things that the data scientists with CaraOne can actually tune and provide. So that's nice to know that the LLM is extremely robust, but if it does need to be tuned, it's the same team of people that can enhance it.
I think it's a pretty unique point as well. Try to go out to one of those other large cloud providers that have, you know, AI services and ask them to tweak or tune their model for you. It's just not going to happen. And we've already done several of them now where it's taken 2 or 3 days to get the material in that needed to be trained from those clients, and literally a day or so to get the training done and completed so that it would meet the customer requirement. John, you know, we talk about the performance of CaraOne. You've got, I think you've just got a single appliance in there, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, for now.
And so, you know, anywhere from 4 to 15 times real time. What has been your experience with the various different contents you've been bringing in? Have you come up with an average that you can count on? What's your,
For the ingest process,
yeah,
uh,
for
that I can't really speak to accurately just because I did not ask the ingest team before I came here. It's not been, we found it to be, we found it to not really be a relevant metric simply because it's so much faster than having a human being do it, that, you know, it's always going to be faster than that, but I don't have a specific number.
Okay. I think we've found through all the customers that we've worked through that 8 is a pretty good number to use if you're just trying to average what it's going to take to bring in a project. Just to clarify that too, you know, the reason there is a span like that, it comes down to the complexity of the content that it's reviewing. So if it's an interview and it's 1 or 2 people talking, you're probably going to see that, you know, 14 times real time. But if you're in a large crowd, there's music in the background, 22 people are talking all around, then CaraOne has to take a lot more time to look at all the faces, analyze all the sound coming in, and that'll bring that performance down to that, you know, 4 times real time. But still, what we've heard out there is it is the fastest analyzing tool that they've seen or compared against anyone else out in the marketplace. So that's extremely promising. What else we got? Any other questions? Any other thoughts, Daryl, John, comments, discussion points that you want to bring up?
I mean, I don't want anybody to buy it because I like keeping my competitive edge. So don't buy this product.
All right, I'm stopping the check now, John. Let's see. What else we got?
Can you talk about stacking multiple servers together depending on how much material I have? How do you determine how many servers we need to analyze all of our footage in a certain period of time?
That'd be you, Daryl.
Sure. So servers can be expanded. 2 reasons to expand servers. One is you may want your footage to be available to the team quicker. So a linear scale at that point, if you're doing 8 times real time on the scan, you're going to do 16 times real time if you bring that second server and dedicate it to scanning. So that's just a natural linear increase to the time to the results. We also have some choices to dedicate servers to searching and the prediction tool and the Ask CaraOne feature. These are also GPU intensive features, and so we can also dedicate servers just for searching. So if we're trying to solve faster searching, better prediction tool, faster results in the Ask CaraOne, we can dedicate a server or servers to those tasks, or we can bring them in for analyzing. So we do have a couple of choices when we scale. What do we want that scale? How do we want to benefit from that scale?
Okay. This question comes up again and again. So What about the recognition of non-public people, non-famous people? And so I think Daryl and John both covered that one. There's a faces folder. So if you're a corporate organization and you've got, your employees and your presidents and all that, and they're not known by the world or the industry that well, it's a matter of just taking 4 to 5 shots of their face. You put it into the faces folder, you give it the recognizable name that you want, and then CaraOne will automatically be able to search on that. She does not have to re-index or anything. The vectors are already there of those faces. So it's it's the one thing that the end user can train very easily is people.
There's a question for John. John, when you ingest, do you have humans checking the veracity of the metadata that CaraOne is creating?
Nope. In fact, it's a closed system. I don't think that we can access the metadata. And it's fundamentally a different way of working than tagging something in an NLA. It's simply because you're doing natural language searches. So it just doesn't come up. We haven't found that to be a detriment, but we've also found the results that we get when we first started using it, we had some veterans of the industry, shall we say, who they would never rely simply on the CaraOne. They would always want to do their own searches at the same time manually. And we found that 80% of the time they would come up with the same results that the editor did. So we're pretty confident in the results that we get.
Perfect. Daryl, is there any redundancy to multiple servers, or is it primarily just a scaling play?
Yes, so the database gets distributed across the servers. So yes, you will also get a redundancy with a multiple server deployment.
Okay.
Now, servers still can be dedicated searching, analyzing, but they're going to back each other up and be able to take over for the other one.
Okay. This is a good one here. So any specific well-known MAMs that you've integrated with so far, pros and cons, are you able to integrate with archive middleware?
Well, so far, anything with the API, and then right now, CaraOne is still using a watch folder technology, so HSMs. So keeping that file appearing like it's online, and those are all valid. LTO is too slow. CaraOne's going to analyze, be reading the clip. It really needs a random access. So with an LTO system, you're just going to want to bring those files off of LTO onto something with better access times, analyze it, and then the HSM can put that file back just on tape. But during that analyzing, it'll be too slow.
And then I'll on top of that, so going back to the MAM integration, so we got the REST API. We're working with about 8 different MAM players right now. Those are all customer driven for doing the integrations. It can be done a couple of different ways too. So if we're both working off of our REST APIs, one way is that CaraOne is actually going to pull metadata, specific special metadata from the MAM and going to be the front end search engine for the customer, versus if we're going to have the MAM do the integration into our REST API and allow the MAM to go to a contextual search tab and use the search engine power of CaraOne. So there are 2 ways to do that. It's just really comes down to customer preference. Can CaraOne search on or be trained to search on text in an image, i.e. numbers on jerseys or logos or products? And the answer to that is just absolutely. It does that already. without a problem. So it can see numbers, it can see names, it can see names if they're not even, you know, really visible. It can find those names. So it's very simple task for CaraOne. All right, I think that is all of the answers that or all the questions that we have. Here comes another one. Oh, that one's just saying great stuff.
No, there is another one.
Yep, I see it. So our company builds unique hardware that we shoot photos and videos of. Can the software be trained on the different products that we would build? So I guess, Daryl, I mean, the answer to that
Yep.
is yes. But it doesn't work like the picture folder where you can put those products into a folder and it's going to know it. So that's where the data scientists would come into play, and you would give them a list of all of those products that you've got, and they would do the appropriate training.
Someone is looking for clarification on the ability to deploy on cloud servers.
So it's been built, so it's cloud capable, it's cloud ready. It just hasn't been requested as of yet from the customer base. So if you had if you're using a private domain up in the public cloud, you wanted to build the servers in there with your own storage, it definitely can be done. It does support that, but we haven't had the requirement as of yet.
All right.
Any final comments, John or Daryl? And we'll bring this to an end. I think we got just a few minutes left, but any final comments?
No, I just really appreciate John's time today, and looking forward to helping anyone with their workflow.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm sort of an evangelist for this stuff, not because I'm naturally like this, but it really is a transformative product. It really does change the way that we look at all of our post workflows, and it's one of the very few on the market that actually work. Most of these things do not work. This one does.
Excellent. So I'll let the audience go here in a second. I'll just let you know that our team and our team of resellers out there are ready to have conversations with you. One of the things we hear the most is, we've seen the demo, we've seen what you can do on your demo and your content, but how does it work on my content? And that's a great question. We've built a process here for those that are really interested, where we can give you a secure link. You can send up a number of hours up into that secure link. We'll have CaraOne watch it out of our interoperability lab. We'll get you back on the phone, and we can kind of walk through some search criteria and see how well it does on your content. We've got other customers that really wanted to try it in with their editors, and we've done the same thing and allowed VDI access into the lab. And then we've got a number of resellers out there, East Coast, West Coast, Central, up in Canada, down in South America, over in Europe, that have equipment at hand as well, and are willing to, help get you comfortable with this latest and greatest technology. I've been in this industry for over 38 years, and this is probably one of the most exciting products I've had the pleasure to bring to market. And John made me so happy last month when I was talking to him, and I could hear a user's experience and just see the glow in his face when he talked about the product. So thank you again, John, and thank you, the attendees. This has been great. We'll get a recording sent out to all that we're on. And again, any questions, you know where to contact us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.